We are joined tonight on Primetime Local News by a familiar face who's usually around here, but unfortunately our Judy Gabriel has had some really bad luck health-wise. Judy, thank you for taking the time to join us today. I know that you're still not feeling well, but thank you for joining us to tell your story.
I'm glad to be here with you.
Now, Judy, most of our viewers will know you from anchoring our newscast and doing interviews for us, but you were diagnosed last month with COVID-19, and I'd like you to tell me a little bit about that journey, how that happened, how it started, and how you got to the diagnosis.
Well, on February 27th, I remember getting a weird cough, and it kind of escalated a little bit, and then all of a sudden I was feeling my throat, everything was hurting. So I went to the doctor, and I remember going there and him telling me that I had bronchitis. And so at that time I said, yeah, is it COVID, you think? Maybe? No. And at that time it was still new COVID, right? So he said, no, I don't think that's it. I think you have bronchitis. So he gave me some some antibiotics and cough syrup, codeine, and then a nose spray, and then told me to go home for 5 days, sleep it off, and get this medication. You'll be fine. And so I did, and then I went back to work, and then after maybe even after a week or so, I was feeling good. I was feeling okay. I had a little bit of congestion in my lungs, but I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was just a healing thing. So on March 17th, I remember going back to the same doctor who said, okay, well, it should have cleared by now. And I was coughing, and I said, is this COVID now? Like, should we test for that?
Right.
And he said, no, we shouldn't test for that. It is pneumonia, and we'll do an x-ray and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll come back on March 20th, which was Friday, and we'll see you again. And I said, okay, went home, and he said, isolate from everyone. I said, okay. And so finally I did, and by Friday the 20th, I got a call. I went to him, and he said, okay, we looked at your x-rays and stuff, and we were going to test for COVID. And I said, okay. So he took a nasal swab, which is a very long swab, into my nose at the very top.
Right.
It burnt, and I said, oh, is it supposed to burn like this? And he said, well, I think so. I'm not sure. But anyway, we got the test done. And he told me to go home, but first he gave me Tamiflu, which is an influenza medication on top of the antibiotics and the nose spray, and also an inhaler that he had given me. And so I said, okay, went home, and he said, stay home until they call you to let you know whether you have COVID or not. And on Sunday, I got a call from, on Sunday, I got a call from Alberta Health Services to confirm that I had COVID.
Now, by that time, though, Judy, your symptoms had already gone downhill. You were deteriorating very quickly by that time. Tell me about that process.
Yeah. Okay, so between that time when I got told that I had pneumonia, I remember just my chest felt like something was sitting on it, and I could feel cuts in it, but not heavy just yet. I was processing that whole process and trying to breathe and trying to feel better, but I was sweating, I was feverish, my head was hurting, I was feeling nauseous, I was disoriented, foggy brained, lost my taste and the smell. I remember that I couldn't smell very well, and my lungs were the ones that I was concerned about because I was having a hard time breathing. My breathing was getting worse and worse, and I could hardly speak, but I was coughing, and finally the Monday came, and I remember calling 911 because I thought I was plummeting really fast. And when they got here, the first paramedics that got here, I remember them being scared to come into my apartment. I live alone. So one of them came in finally and talked to me for a bit, and then eventually just said, hey, do you want to stay or go? But at this point, I can't think, right? My head, so foggy, and I was disoriented. And I was pretty ill at that moment. And but then I just laid down, and he's like, okay, she's going to stay. And he left. They left, and I thought, I'm going to figure it out. Yeah.
Okay, well, Judy, we're going to be back here after the commercial break to talk more about this, and we're going to talk about what happened after that time. So thank you for joining us for this first segment. Stay with us, and we'll be right back. Judy Gabriel is back with us once again. Judy, normally you'll see her face on our newscast, anchoring, hosting panels, just, generally being a great person to be around. And she's had a tough go, as you saw in our first part of our newscast, after being diagnosed with COVID-19. Judy, when we left the conversation in the first segment, we talked about the paramedics coming in and you decided to stay at home. But shortly after that, a former retired physician here in Lloydminster, Dr. Raf Saeed, found out about your condition and spoke with you. And he convinced you that you needed to be in the hospital. So let's start there and tell me what happened at that point.
Definitely. I was plummeting really fast. And because I was on my own, I don't think I was very coherent and I couldn't really figure it out by myself. And I was losing breath a lot. So he had called and said, hey, you need to get to the hospital. This is going to take a turn for the worse. Mm-hmm. And I remember listening to him. But then at the same time, I said, okay, I will. And every time I said I will, I was just trying to breathe and feeling fatigued and foggy. Anyway, so finally he said, if you don't call, I'm going to call. And so then I remember thinking about my family and thinking, I don't want them to be sad, mm-hmm. just to lose me. So I called 911. And they came, the paramedics got me. I got to the hospital and they put me in an isolated room. They have a section for just COVID, for the COVID cases.
Right.
And I remember coming in there and they weren't ready for that kind of stuff. I was their first patient. So they put me in that one room and I was vomiting, I was coughing. I remember trying to breathe and I found a section to breathe through my lungs. And I remember just vomiting and holding my breath just so I can get clear of that so that I can breathe again, because at that point I felt like I was gonna plummet and I was gonna die. Really, that's how I felt. And luckily the specialist, Dr. Abdullah, had come in and he right away assessed it and administered hydrochloroquine,
right,
which is something that they were just testing. He just said, you're our guinea pig, basically. And we're going to see if this works and hope to God it works.
And
do you being
feel
scared, but I couldn't.
Do you feel that it did work, Judy? Do you think that, I mean there's obviously a lot of controversy over the drug itself, but in your case, do you feel that it worked?
I think in my case, it did something. It suppressed something for me to be able to breathe again. So within 3-4 days, I was able to breathe and be able to talk. And that's when I started videotaping a little bit of myself for my family. And I think it was important for them to do that. And it's the drug of hope, whether or not it worked. I know that there's a lot of side effects. My heart right now, I'm going through a few things with my heart mm-hmm. right now. So, it speeds up, it slows down, it does its own thing, but it's painful a little bit. And so my lungs are still healing and all of those things. But I mean, COVID affects most of the parts in your system, right?
Right.
It really destroyed my lungs in terms of, lung tissue breakdown. And just recovering from that. And the heart thing is just, I think, either compensating mm-hmm. for my lungs or it's just something else. So I sweat at night. It feels like I have a fever still. I feel very weak, but I can talk and I can breathe, which is a good thing.
Now, you've been dealing with Judy with this for well over a month. And one of the reasons you said you wanted to start telling your story is to create awareness. When you were working in our building and developed COVID, there were several others who had COVID as well, to a lot less degree than what you had. But I think the important thing here to talk about is how easily it is to see this spread and to see people catch it.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an unknown virus and what it does and how it transfers from one person to another. Obviously, a lot of things, we have to wash our hands, we have to take care of ourselves, and we have to social distance. And we have to, take being quarantined and staying at home very seriously. Unfortunately, I think that we don't have the enough equipment to retest people that have had COVID.
And that was one of the things, Judy, you said you would like to get a second test, because the procedure now in Saskatchewan and Alberta is if you are tested COVID positive, once you get past, it's a 10 or a 14-day period, just depending, and then you make 24 to 48 hours without symptoms, you're considered clear. But because your case is unique, yeah. You have been asking for a retest, but what's been happening with that? Any luck at all?
Yeah, I think they're going to do more of a EKG and test my phlegm and test other stuff.
But not a COVID test?
But not a COVID test, and this is why they said that you can't. Because once COVID enters your body, it becomes part of your DNA. Okay. And so you'll still test you'll still test positive because your body has adapted it into its system. That's what it does. And so they said, well, you're going to test positive anyway. So it's really defeating the purpose. So then I carry on thinking, well, I said, well, what if it reactivates or it does something where it comes back or it's wreaking havoc still? And she said, well, we don't know those things and we're hoping that you're clear of it. But right now at this moment, to test you would be, you'd be COVID anyway. So it's a very confusing time because you want to be retested so you know that you're clear of that. So I'm able to communicate with people, not communicate, but at least like walk outside and do a little bit of exercise.
Right.
I'm all by myself in the house and stuff like that. So it's hard to kind of do stuff here. But yeah, the retesting is very important. I think it's an important thing we do, but I guess they don't do that here.
Right.
And so been pushing for that. And
Well, Judy, we're just about running out of time here, but thank you for speaking with us. I know you have a long battle ahead, and obviously everybody here at Primetime Local News and Stingray Television wishes you the best. If you had one message right now, Judy, to share with the public about everything you've been through, what would you tell them?
I would say take it seriously. It's not something that you joke about, and I think people that have a better immune system or whatever, mine was something that happened because of my my weak immune because of the, it was just because of my bronchitis. But I think for people to be aware that you could affect someone's life, that people die from this. It's not something that you want to play around with, and being, socially isolated or social distancing is very important. I think we're going to save a lot of lives, people that have immune compromised and people that are elderly. Like we have to take care of our grandparents and our families, and we have to think about those things. I mean, we're all in this together.
Well, Judy, once again, thank you so much. I know you're still not feeling well, but we send you our best wishes, and we hope to see you back here soon. So make sure that you are getting better. That's a direct order from myself. So we want to see you get better and get back here soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Judy.